Hello, this is part 3 of the video series on Gemini Electronics case study. I'm going to split this segment into 2 parts. This video will cover the first step in financial analysis, getting to know your subject company. It will also cover a review and analysis of raw data, scaled down data, trend analysis, and common size analysis. I'll post part 4 on ratios, cash flow, and putting it all together later this week. The information in this video should be enough to get you off to a good start. I will share with you some tips and techniques on how to begin your analysis of Gemini Electronics. It is by no means all-inclusive. It is impossible to fit 25 years of experience in 2 short videos, but I'll try my best. These tips and techniques are sometimes fashioned around Gemini, but are also generic at times. You will have to decide what and how you are going to use this information I am sharing with you. To get started, go back and read the case again. Remember a couple of weeks ago when I talked about knowing your customer, or in this case, the subject company? I talked about how I took a plant tour and talked to management before even looking at financial information. That is what you are doing as you read the case. You are taking a virtual tour. Take notes, both literally and figuratively, on items such as the following. Identify the things you expect to find and what you were surprised to find. Remember the discussion board regarding Walmart, Disney, and Facebook? The first question was, what do you expect to find? Well, besides having a great discussion, it was good preparation for what we are doing now. For instance, what might be the effect of generous customer terms offered to customers, shown at the bottom of page 3? Discover the company's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Strengths and weaknesses are internally based characteristics. Opportunities and threats are externally based. For example, how do you view their market share? Is it a strength or a weaknesses? Some characteristics can be both strengths and weaknesses. Review the company's strategic advantages. What do they do better than the competition and what is sustainable? It can be a process that reduces cost, brand equity in the market, patents, and things like that. Study the company's plans. Are they planning to grow geographically or with new products? Are they content to stay the same size and make changes elsewhere, perhaps increasing efficiency and margin? Scan the external environment. What is happening externally that could affect the company? For example, how might the recession of 2008 and 2009 affect financial performance? Understand the company's business model. Simply put, how do they make money? Determine the company's place in the product life cycle. Are they in a growing market, a mature market, or a declining market? For example, where are LCD TVs on the product life cycle at the beginning of the case, and how does it change over time? Identify the competition and what they are doing. Observe the general conditions of the facilities if applicable. Do things appear up to date, or are they older and not well kept? Learn the company's mission statement. If the company has a strong mission, you won't have to search for the mission statement plastered on the wall. It will be apparent to you during your visit. These are just some of the things that you can look at before beginning your financial analysis. You may not be able to identify everything on this list from the facts in the Gemini case. There will be other observations that you can make that aren't on this list. Think big picture and detailed at the same time. Figure out what is important and what is trivial. Once you have a good sense of the company's mission, strategy, business model, plans, etc., determine your audience. Who will be using this analysis report? Is it the owner, an investor, bankers, vendors, some other stockholder? Understanding who your audience is can serve as a guide as you decide what to look at and what to ignore. Not everything is equally important to everyone. We have already completed the next step when we formatted the data and scaled down trend and common size statements and calculated ratios last week. Once you are ready to begin your analysis, review the raw data one more time. You may want to spot check items back to the actual financial statements. For the Gemini case, that could be the data. This is also referred to as source documents. If there are errors or things aren't quite right on the raw spreads, none of the other spreads or calculations will be correct. Next, review the scaled down statements. Make sure things balance and spot check things like income and total assets back to the raw data. I am now going to go over the trend and common size statements. I'm going to ask you to make observations about what these values are telling us. There are two general types of observations that can be made: statements of fact and assumptions. A statement of fact is something you can prove with facts from the case. That would be something like, sales are increasing because the company opened a new market in Brazil. An assumption would not necessarily be supported by direct fact, but could be supported with basic knowledge or relationships that you might observe. For example, selling and distribution expense as a percent of sales went down as sales increased. This could be due to economies of scale and expense structure in this area. Next, you will analyze the trend statements. This is often referred to as horizontal analysis because you are comparing items from one year to the next, horizontally across the rows. Identify trends in account balances. Did things go up or down? Is that trend a good or poor trend? Obviously, we can usually associate an increase in sales as a good trend, but is it increasing at an increasing or decreasing rate? For instance, sales that increased 20% in year 1 and 30% in year 2 are increasing at an increasing rate. That would be analyzed differently than an increase in year 1 of 20 and an increase in year 2 of only 5%. These values are increasing at a decreasing rate. Trends can also be negatively trending at an increasing or decreasing rate. Increases are not always good trends. Think about a year-over-year increase in cost of goods sold. What are the things that might be causing this? You can also analyze the trends vertically. For example, if sales went up 50%, where else might you expect to see this happening in another account? Again, start by making observations about the data, then see if you can connect the dots between your observations and the facts in the case, or your general knowledge and ability to see relationships within the data. Common size analysis is often referred to as vertical analysis. You are analyzing the accounts up and down the columns. Remember that income statements are common sized on a percent of sales, and balance sheets are common sized on a percent of total assets. Common size statements allow us to analyze statements regardless of their size in terms of dollars. The common size income statement breaks down sales into different components that end up in a return on sales. There is some redundancy in these statements with the ratio analysis. For instance, we can identify cost of sales as a percentage of sales on both the common size and ratio page. That could also be cost of goods as a percent of sales. Common size values can also be compared vertically year over year. For example, did cost of goods sold go up or down with the change in sales? They can also be compared to the competitors through this data, although it's not available in the Gemini case. For example, how do our cost of goods sold track with a competitor who has a similar product line? Are we higher or lower than them? What could be causing this difference? Again, go into the case and take your knowledge to develop statements of fact or assumptions. Finally, these values can be compared to industry standards. How is the company doing in comparison to the industry? Balance sheet values can be compared to access to company's asset allocation and capital structure. We'll be getting a lot more specific about capital structure in the second measurement class. For now, think of it as the amount of debt and equity. The balance sheet can also be used to assess the working capital need and change. Again, this is a concept that we'll take a deeper dive into in Measurement 2. Remember that the balance sheet and income statement are interrelated, so don't look at them in a vacuum. It is also important to look at the trend statement and common size statement together to identify similar movements in accounts. So when looking at the statement, remember to identify things that go up, things that go down, things that don't move, maybe they should be moving, things that don't make sense, and things that make complete sense to you. Also try to make observations about things that matter. An item that is only 0.4% of the balance sheet may not be worthy of a lot of study unless it has increased or decreased substantially. Also, your analysis should correlate with the business you're looking at. Remember the balance sheet detective and they identify the industry? As always, it's important to know what is important. So start out by reading the case once and then probably a second time. Start making a list of observations on things like the strategy, business model, environment, etc. Then move into the financial analysis of the statements. Try to categorize and relate things to one another so you don't end up with a big list of observations that don't flow or make sense. Work on creating statements of facts or assumptions that relate to the observations you made in the data. You don't want to end up with what I call an elevator report. That means your report is nothing more than this went up and that went down, and this went up and that went down. You may have to start there, but then you need to tell the story of why things happen and what should be the recommendation or action taken. It's simple as what, why, and so what. I'll be back with part 4 dealing with ratios, putting it all together, a review of the rubric, and report organization. Until then, get started and don't hesitate to contact me for help. This is a group project, so you should begin assembling your group now. I posted the list of groups and the official spreadsheets in course announcements. If you don't hear from your group leader in a day or two, reach out to them to see how you can get started. In the meantime, start assembling your list of observations that you can bring to the group for discussion. Good luck and have fun.